Hello, Mark. Hello, Giles. Very
How you
nice
doing?
seeing your faces.
Hello.
Likewise.
Yeah.
We have some really, really nice things to talk about. So I will start with the kind of the obvious question. When did you decide to say, hey, let's release a new Warlord album?
Well, what kind of happened, obviously, is when Bill passed away, as much as we kind of all knew, it was coming, because he'd been very ill for a lot of years, it still came as a big shock. And it still came as a lot of revelations like, okay, well, there's that's that. Okay. So that's, Bill and I were working on music at the time. We had been for like the last year or two. Um, and so when that happened, it was kind of like, okay, let's just stop everything. Let's not even talk about this. Let's not, there's, what are we going to do a week later? Say, hey, Warlord's going on tour. Of course, there's a period of mourning and all that kind of stuff. But I guess a year or two later, or whenever it was, Giles came to me, and I mean, we talk all the time and we work together anyways. But he had these emails from Bill that I never saw. I do remember very distinctly Bill telling me over the years, "Hey, Mark, just go get another guitar player. I can't physically do it, but I want my music to be out there. It's important that my music still goes on. And without you guys, it's not going to go on. It's just going to die." And Giles had these texts or emails from Bill talking about how he wants us to continue with his music and put it out. And like I said, I had a bunch of songs that Bill and I were working on, and we kind of went from there and we just talked about it and, you know, kind of just made sense at the time.
And Giles, it was you who had all the materials from Bill, right? All the, let's say, the archives, the cassettes, the CDs.
Yeah, well, I mean, how that all came to be was, I mean, the origin of that was the reissue project we did through a fantastic label here in Germany called High Roller Records. Now, Bill, at a certain point, decided that he wants the catalog to be presented the best way possible. He would sit me down and we would talk. He wouldn't like sort of say, "Hey, like this is what it's got to be." We would talk for hours about any number of topics. And one thing he said, he goes, I'm not going to live a long life. I want to know that the records are going to live on, the music's going to live on. There's unreleased music, there's unreleased demos, there's alternate versions, mixes, etc., etc. Let's put together the ultimate editions of Deliver Us, Cannons, Rising, Holy Empire, the live record, etc., etc. So we partnered with High Roller and did that. But in doing so, and as this is a process that went on for about 4 years, not everything came out in one day. So in the process of doing so, we were talking about doing some music together again, me and Bill, and whether that was going to take shape as Warlord or not. I mean, we were talking about all kinds of things. And he also did talk about Warlord, and he gave me a number of unfinished pieces of music. And that's everything from a riff or a piece of music played on a keyboard that we transposed onto guitar later, or fully finished instrumental tracks that were intended for future Warlord records or a record. So that's how that came to be. And I've got all the archives back here in Germany in boxes, all the cassettes, all the DAT tapes. Most of it's all out there, but there is still, there's still some pieces of music that we could use in the future. There's at least another album's worth. But that's how that came to be.
And
So,
there's also too, I have stuff here on my hard drive going back to
Yeah.
2017 that Bill and I were working on. So we had older stuff, we had newer stuff. That's why some of the tracks on the actual album is Bill playing, because we had the multi-track, well, not multi-track, multi-computer track file of Bill's guitar parts. So we had it right here and we used it. And, which always kind of cracks me up when people go, "Oh, that doesn't sound like Warlord at all." It's like, well, that's Bill. That's me and Bill playing together. I'm not sure what else someone wants for Warlord, but no, it wound up being coming out very, very, very good.
so this sounds like not an easy process because it's not the traditional way you work on an album, right? You have some stuff,
Oh,
so you have to work on this, and then you build upon this material. And
Well,
you didn't have Bill on your side. So how difficult, strange, anything else was this
Well,
process?
a couple things to note. We did have Bill on our side, and Bill was definitely there in spirit. His guitar tracks were there. And more importantly, whether it wasn't necessarily me so much because I was there from the beginning, but everybody else 100% dove into the quote Warlord sound. This was to be done like Warlord. If you notice, the drum tracks are like Mark in 1985. It's not crazy. It's not electronics. It's not syncopated grooves. It's not this. It's not that. It's not an overly thought out thing. It was Warlord, and everybody understood that. Okay. Jimmy Waldo, was he the biggest Warlord fan in the world? Probably not, but he dove so heavily into it. He knew exactly what sounds to play and exactly when to play them and how to play them. The same with Eric, dove totally into Bill's sound, got that completely together. So it sounded like a Warlord record and totally understood, the Warlord sound. It was where it was going to go. And honestly, I don't, I know Giles, Eric, and Jimmy did a lot of work. A lot of work. I kind of sat back and played the drums. Truth be told, I don't know, Giles. Was it that difficult? I thought it was pretty easy. I guess when you just deal with professionals, it just goes bang, bang, bang.
It's really like it's actually cool that you mentioned that, Mark, because I mean we did this record took about 6 months from the first downbeat to like the final master, and it really, without sounding kind of, hippy trippy, it really did feel like Bill was there because we weren't taking his music and going, well, that's cool, but let's pitch it up an octave or let's transpose it to another key. We didn't do that. This was Bill. Everything you hear on this record musically is something Bill wrote. So if someone says, hey, that chorus sounds a little too much like a European power metal chorus, well, that's because Bill wanted it that way. That's Bill's music. He even dictated vocal melodies on his guitar or with a keyboard. Now, I wrote the lyrics on, 7 or 8 out of the 10 songs because there were no lyrics. That was the only creative license that was taken. The music is all Bill, everyththing. That's not even a slight exaggeration. It's all Bill. Sometimes it was a case of, like you'd imagine yourself, you've got a bunch of really great car parts for a classic car, and you've got to assemble it, but you're not going to take something that's not of that time period and put it there, and you're gonna keep it all exactly as it's meant to go together, and that's what we did with respect with all of Bill's music.
So did you bring Jim and Eric before you guys start working on the music?
No. Well, I mean, I started sorting through the ideas and the demos just to see if, like, okay, do we have something here? I mean, it wasn't an arbitrary decision. It was definitely driven by, do we have the music to do this with? And let's listen through Bill's ideas. Let's read his emails, listen to his voice messages, listen to his instruction of how he, saw this working. And then it's a case of finding the right people. I mean, Jimmy Waldo, I've worked with in Alcatraz for many years. He's a dear friend. And he's a guy that, like Mark said, he would listen to the Warlord Deliver Us album and he would listen to Bill's demos and go, that's a mini Moog. And he'd give me he'd give me the make, the model, the serial number of which keyboard it was. That's how seriously he took this. Eric, it was a case of, we started with a couple of other guitar players and they weren't nailing the Warlord sound. That's how important this was. We had to find a guy that was going to not just play a bunch of detuned kind of Pantera downstroke picking riffs because he thought that was what he wanted to do and that would be cool. We needed to find a guy that understood the Warlord sound, understood Bill's sound, understood the Greek, a musical background that Bill had. And Eric was that guy. He played a couple of the older tunes for us. We were blown away. He played a couple of the new demos. We were blown away. And I think Mark would agree.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. It kind of it reminds me of when I joined Graham Bonnet's band and I was playing Cozy Powell's parts. Yeah, I could have just sat down and we could just play the songs because I know the songs, but I sat down and I studied every little hit, every little part, and that's exactly what Eric did, and that's what Jimmy did. They were honoring the player, they are honoring the band, and they are going to honor the audience by giving them what they wanted. No one wants to hear, Yngwie playing Warlord. No one wants to hear whoever playing Warlord, they want to hear Bill. So that's what Eric got into and did an amazing job and really took the time and the energy to create that. And I think it shows on that record.
And I think
Sure.
that,
I mean, it's
go ahead, sorry.
well. What I just wanted to say is, and what a lot of people may not realize, guitar players, much like singers or like any musician, but I've noticed in particular guitar players all want to leave their mark. They always say, "Well, hey, we can play that song, but let me make it my own," because they all want to leave their mark. It takes a very it takes a very egoless person with a great deal of humility to say, "My sound, my style, my choice of amp is all going to take a back seat in order to honor, the purpose of what this was, and that was Bill's music." And Eric did that, and again, those guys are rare.
I saw Mark laughing, but seriously, it's not all about being professional. It's being confident in what you do and actually knowing where you are going to play. It's, let's say, situational awareness. So they knew these guys where they're coming, and therefore they wouldn't want to alter that.
Well, it's number one, it's professional. It's just a pro. Pro gets you so far. But then here's the other one that my good friend there, Phil Ehart, told me. He said, some guys just aren't manageable. They can be great players. They can be this. They can be your best friend. But when you ask them to do A, B, and C, and they do A, B, and D because they thought D was better than C, you've got a problem. And we had none of that. We had none of that at all. And going out live, everybody knows we're playing it note for note. There's no place for a keyboard solo. Eric will learn those solos and the harmony parts note for note. There'll be no extra flash. It's a tribute to Bill, and it's actually just a tribute to Warlord. Keeping Warlord is what it is, and that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear, any version of this, that, and the other. They don't want to hear me go back in and on Aliens, put a reggae feel to it and change it. They want to hear what they want to hear, and that's what we're going to give them.
Yeah. So the album has two Lordian Guard songs. How did you choose those two?
Well, it's funny because the whole Lordian Guard Warlord thing, and there are many that know this, but for those that don't, the last three Warlord albums have all had Lordian Guard re-records.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
most people know that these songs started as Warlord songs before Bill recorded them with Lordian Guard.
Yeah, because Bill and I, back in 1981, 82, or 80, or whenever it was, when it was Bill and I sitting in this warehouse in San Jose, and Bill's over there in his Kiss boots, being about 6'5", and I'm 5'8", and here's this big guy, and we're playing. I mean, we were playing those songs. We were playing Winds of Thor. We were playing a lot of those songs that kind of jump back and forth between Warlord, Lordian Guard, and back to Warlord. So I'm sure there's plenty of songs that are strictly Lordian Guard because he's writing in a different style. But I do remember a lot of songs were Warlord songs to start with.
Okay. So, well, I was asking, how did you choose to make them part of the album? Because the rest of the songs are going, I think, in the old days of Warlord, where the songs are shorter, based on the riff, a chorus, not the epic ones that you had in the Holy Empire. So this is why I was asking why you choose those.
Okay. I can answer that. Bill, he told me. He said, I always wanted to do Behold a Pale Horse on a future Warlord record. The same with Revelation. He just said, those two have got to be Warlord songs one day. And there's one more as well called Lost Archangel that he said was Warlord back in 84. So he just earmarked them as like, yeah, I'm going to Warlordize them and do them the right way in the future. So that made it very easy. Just which ones did he mention? He mentioned those ones.
And now I really understand what Mark said when he said that Bill was with you guys when you were working on this album, because everything you guys are talking about, you said, oh, well, Bill had said that, or there was an email from Bill. So now I really, really get it.
Well, here's an interesting story for you. While recording the record, to a point when I was sitting behind me over there in the drum room and knocking out these songs, there was, I had little flashbacks, Bill and stuff like that. But you have to remember those songs are kind of all new for me to record. But I've been learning the 17 songs that we're going to play live. And there's literally times when I'm playing them that I lose track of kind of where I am because I'm tripping and I'm thinking about me and Bill back in San Jose jamming. You know, here he is with the black and white striped shirt and the size 28 Jordache pants and the Capizios and I mean, I remember it was like yesterday. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll never forget Bill with his very, very first Strat that he ever had. He'd just throw it wherever and just like, you know, just lay it down here, lay it down there, throw it down there. And I used to say to him, dude, aren't you like worried that you're gonna like, nah, it'll be fine. It's fine. But no, he'll always be there. I mean, there's no way that you can play a note of this music and not think of Bill, you know, and that's just the way it is. And he's the only guy, you know, everybody else that's come and gone and played and not played and recorded, you don't think of them, you know. I don't mean to be rude, but it's just the truth. You know, I think of Bill, you know, I think of Bill sitting there when we did the first demo and sticking our ear closer and closer to the speaker, you know, until we had our head in the speaker because it sounded so much better. But, you know, there was alcohol involved. But I'm just saying no, Bill's here. There's no question about it. You know, I mean, I play 1 to 2 notes on the drums that are Warlord songs, and it's Bill. You know, it all comes back. There's no question.
Yeah, it's Warlord belong to the category that the music, no matter what, will stay. It remains. It grows bigger than the band. So it's something that will stay forever, and it always will always remind us of Bill.
Well, as much as I'd love to say that, you know, the fans are coming to see me or they're coming to see Bill, they're coming whatever, they're coming to see Warlord. Yes. They want to hear this. It's the song thing. It's not and that's what Bill was always about, because Bill could have done whatever he wanted. If Bill wanted to be Yngwie, he could have been Yngwie. If Bill wanted to be this, he could have been that. But it was all about the song and the music. And it's funny because I'm talking to Giles and I say, hey, you know, are we 25 years old and do we have the greatest looking guys in the band? And do we have this and do we have that? And do we have I go, no, but we have the songs. And that's what's going to differentiate us from other bands that play. Every song that we kick into is special and different than the song we just played. So that's what we have going for us.
Giles, how did you approach the lyrics?
Very interesting. You say that. A little bit going back to what Mark said. Bill's kind of always there. Every word I wrote, I would think, would Bill use this word? Obviously, if Bill was here, he would have written different lyrics. It's scientifically impossible for there to have been any crossover at all. But Bill did leave some notes as far as certain themes and concepts that he imagined for certain pieces of music. Worms of the Earth being one of them. But every lyric I wrote was, what would Bill do? Or is this Warlord sounding? There was certainly not going to be any, it's the final countdown or Rock the Night. As much as I love Europe and as much as Bill loved Europe and Dokken, it was going to be nothing like that. I just treated it very respectfully. I tried to keep within the theme of what Warlord was. Everything from sort of that Mrs. Victoria type of thing, which, you know, you could maybe hear on a song like The Rider, or some of the more theological stuff that you can hear on something, you know, like Twin. But it's definitely in keeping with what Warlord was and is. I certainly didn't want to start writing, I want to rock, there was not going to be any of that,
I think what a lot of people have to realize too, and they really need to step back. Okay, picture this. How about if I came to you and gave you Carry On My Wayward Son and said, hey man, write some lyrics for this? How difficult would that be? It's kind of the same thing. Giles was put in a situation where he had music. Is he Bill? No, but he tried to understand it. So when people go, oh, that's not Bill, of course it's not Bill. Okay, we wish it would have been. But people really have to realize what an amazing job Giles did on this and how absolutely difficult. We're not talking about playing a drum beat. We're not talking about playing a bass line. You're talking basically to the identity of the song and how difficult. I wouldn't want that responsibility. but Giles tackled it, did a great job, and people kind of need to appreciate that. I mean, I do.
Well, I didn't ask that question because I want to say how Giles wrote lyrics instead of Bill. I'm not sure if my question came that way. I apologize if it did.
Oh no, no, not at all.
No.
No, I was just trying to make a point on how difficult that really is and how much work Giles put into it. Just like Eric and Jimmy, again, the common theme is it's got to sound like Warlord. It's got to sound like Warlord. Oh no, your question was fine. We just kind of took it in a little different direction. That's all.
No, and I totally get it, because I will be stressed out of my head trying to be respectful in such a project that you guys took on. So I hope people understand that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, while Mark paid me a really awesome comment a few minutes ago, it was also Bill and I would, for the last years of his life, we had many discussions about all manner of philosophical topics, theological topics, or just sitting and watching Bonanza. So I felt that I had a good understanding of what Bill would deem appropriate or inappropriate. So again, it was just a case of being respectful to the Bill that I knew both as a person and as a musician, and to the legacy of the band that Mark and Bill created.
In fact, my follow-up question about the lyrics was about conquerors. And I was thinking that's a very Greek themed lyric.
Yes.
So this is why I want to see what happened inside Giles' brain.
My brain there was basically to say thank you to the Greek fans. There's two songs that say thank you to the fans. The other one is called Free Spirit Soar. Conquerors is thank you to the Greek fans for their support. Greece is the spiritual home of this band of Warlord, and that's long before I was around. It's been that way for many decades. So that song is for them. The other song, Free Spirit Soar, is based on an exchange of emails, Facebook messages, and stuff from the old Warlord page, where Bill thanked those fans for bringing him back into music. And then that is the chorus. And then the verses are the fans speaking to Bill. So it's the verses of Free Spirit Soar, when you hear it, are the fans, including myself, speaking to Bill, thanking him for his music, and thanking the band for the music. And then the choruses are Bill responding to the fans, thanking thanking them for bringing him back into music around the 2011-2012 period. And that's what Free Spirit Soar is all about. So there's two songs on the record that touch on that theme.
And now you answered another question that I have about why you chose this as the album's title, but now I understand.
Well, and there's another side to that. There was 3 pieces of music, instrumentals, that Bill titled Free Spirit Soar. So I figured he really must have had something in mind for that title. So we're going to call the album that, because if you've got 3 different pieces of music, all called Free Spirit Soar, you're obviously thinking, well, I'm feeling pretty good about that title,
How did you approach, what did you ask the artist for the album cover artwork?
A lot of it I wanted to leave, and again, me and Mark kind of talked about this as well, leave a little bit of it open to interpretation. Don't give away all. There's a lot of things on that album cover. If you look closely, you'll notice there's tombstones, but not a single one of them has Bill's name on it.
Right.
But there is a dove ascending into the sky that is present. There's many Warlord historical things hidden in the album cover, and it's somewhat of a sequel and an homage to the first EP, Deliver Us. But yeah, there's all sorts of symbolism in there that the fans will pick up on.
So did you actually work with the artist closely and said, well, did you give him basic ideas?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. But him and the label also had creative input and said, what about that? And I went, wow, yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't, go ahead.
No, I should say a lot of times it's easier to sit back and let someone do what they think they want to do. And then you can go, yes, no, whatever. I mean, the first time that I saw it, I thought it was great. I thought it was a perfect tie into that first Deliver Us record. without being too too similar, but you can tell it's a Warlord record. Warlord's had some album covers over the years that I haven't like jumped for joy about. But this one was great. It turned out extremely well, and I think it fits, which is more important.
There are 10 songs in the album. However, the vinyl has 8. I'm guessing this is because to space limitations for the vinyl. Otherwise, you will have a double record, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is correct. And I believe one of them, I think it's one of the tracks that's not on the LP is on the B-side of the 7-inch single. So I think you can get 9 of the songs in the vinyl format. One is an exclusive for CD.
So there is no another 7-inch for the other song.
Well, there's a Conquerors single, and that on the back that has the Watchman.
Correct. I was talking about Twin.
Twin is, I don't know if there's any more 7 inches planned. That's a question for the label, but Twin is exclusive to the CD at this point.
Okay, got it. Production? Who did the production?
Ricardo. Let me just, I would really like to give him full credit here. So let me just bear with me while I look up his last name.
Everybody basically tracked their own parts in their own studios.
Mm-hmm.
And Giles is going to pull up Ricardo's last name here, who did the mixing. But there was a lot of production per se going into this whenever, what we were recording. It wasn't like we sent it to Ricardo and he had to make 95 different decisions. It was basically, here's the drums, here's the bass, here's the guitars, here's the vocals. Everybody working on this was extremely professional. So what we delivered to him was pretty much just ready to go and mix.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. And when people say production these days, I always assume they mean the mix because generally they do. I mean, just wanted to make sure I pronounce his name right, Riccardo Demarossi.
Okay.
And he did a very good job. I mean, we didn't want, sampled drums and dry signal guitars replaced with, Dimebag's tone or whatever, or anyone's tone. It had to be an organic sounding record, just like all Warlord records are. And he got that concept. It took a minute. To be fair to everyone, it took him a minute because, modern metal records are made very differently these days. You've really got to to get back to basics, you've got to have that conversation. A couple of mixes he sent through were like, not quite. But by mix 3, he had it nailed. And he did a great job with the rest of the record at that point.
I was trying to read Mark's face when you mentioned sample drums.
Well, it's interesting. The samples and stuff. Well, it's interesting because, when you spend so many years and you have your own studio and you have it down and you have these amazing analog sounds and it just sounds great, and you send it off to someone to mix and all they do is throw samples on it. It really is basically, and I know people aren't going to like this, but it's really this generation. They don't come from that generation of being in a real recording studio with tape machines, and you have to mic up the drums properly. You have to get the right drum sound. Things can't be out of phase. And it's a lost art on how to do those kind of records. It's really a lost art. And I was having a conversation with this engineer the other day, and we were talking about this, that, and the other. And it came to the point he didn't even know how to mic up a drum set to get the sounds, because he goes, well, I'm going to put samples on this, that, and the other anyway. So what does it really matter? And I go, well, that's not really a record. I mean, you might as well just bust out the drum machine. But yes, everything we do is more organic. It's definitely one of those kind of things where if you got the great sounds, you go with it. You don't need to put samples on top of it. And you do, and to Ricardo's credit, like Giles said, it took a minute, but when we got there, he realized what he had and made it work.
Yeah, it's interesting that we have so much technology in our disposal, but now we have come to the point that the music starts changing because of the technology. Nowadays, we have AI creating music, so I don't know what is next. So yes, it's a lost art.
Yeah. Oh no. And I think when you do records like that, it really stands out, and hopefully people take notice of it. It's just one of those things where they really can hear, what's going on and how it is different than, oh, that's the same kick and snare that everybody has on the records, and brick wall limiting to where everything is just slamming against the meter and it just has that sound. Obviously Warlord was never like that. A lot of dynamics, a lot of energy, a lot of passion. And when you brick wall it like that, you kind of lose a lot of that. So no, it's totally old school.
Yeah. Last comment on that, and I don't want to go there because it will take 1 hour to discuss this, is, do people really listen to music nowadays? And how do they listen to music? I've seen people making forming opinions about music so fast, just like listening 1 minute of a song, not even the entire record. So yes, it's different how bands record and produce the albums, but at the same time, it's different how people interact with the music and how they listen to the music. How much time do you invest to digest what you hear?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I listen to more music now because of it's probably not a very popular opinion right now, but things like YouTube, where every album is free, absolutely, and you can listen to whatever. Spotify, that is given people at their fingertips. When I was younger and I was looking for like Manowar Into Glory Ride, when I grew up in New Zealand, and it took me like 5 years to find a copy. These days, I'd just go to YouTube and I'd have it in like a hot second. So maybe it's a little bit like you don't appreciate the convenience so much, but I kind of do, because I remember what it was like having to search for an album. I'm out riding my bike before this interview, and I've got Spotify plugged in on these headphones, and I can just listen to the new Ace Frehley record without having to, I don't have to have a Discman with me or anything like that. I enjoy the portability of music these days. Obviously, there's a negative or not so good side about everything kind of being free, but as far as just your question, how do people listen to music? Very in a very portable, convenient, and you can be in a hotel room in wherever and have your entire collection on your phone, whereas previously you couldn't. You had to make a mixtape. It's just different.
I'm going to go a little different route on this one, and not sure if I'm getting off topic, but the fact that anybody and their mother can put music out, and that it is so available, people have only so many hours in the day to listen to music.
True.
Now, when I was growing out too, I guess. Growing up, it was,
That's good. I like that.
The new Deep Purple record's coming out, but it's not like, and it's like you waited for it and you want it and you couldn't wait till, I'll still remember the day I put Burn in my hand for the very, very first time. But if you have 75 other things to listen to or look at it, like, oh, what's that? Or it's almost like, I'm not going to say too confusing, but I think the quality went way down. Everybody and their mother can put out something. Yes, you would have to say, well, then you don't have to listen to it. But yeah, but people do listen to it to see that it is good or bad. To me, it just kind of lowered the bar way down. Before, you used to have to be to a certain quality so a label would invest onto you, right, into you. And that's how you propel careers. And I think what's killed a lot of bands' careers and the whole music business is the fact that it is everywhere and it is free basically for all intents and measures. And it is a big flood zone. It just kind of, to me, lowered the bar down a little bit. And then you only have so many hours in the day to listen to music. But that's just that's the old man rant.
And I think someone made a really good comment the other day. It was like, yes, what used to be people's demos are now people's albums. There were bands like I think Mark from Jag Panzer said, they did 4 demos before they were ready to record their first EP. He says if that was now, the temptation to make their first demo their record would have been too great, So,
minor comment about what you said, Giles, about having everything in your disposal. Hey, first of all, I buy more music right now because I have so many things I can check. And secondly, you went through that phase, and Mark did, where you have to actually wait to get for your record store to bring the vinyl or the cassette tape. You had to wait to go through and see what they have in store. Nowadays, you get a text message, we have a new song. So
see, also too, there's a point, and I know this sounds funny, but again, another thing I'll never forget, going to Tower Records, waiting for the new Sammy Hagar Red album, getting it,
oh yeah,
tripping, kind of tripping on, oh my God, okay, you can't listen to it right then. You can't listen to it in a car. You got to go home.
Yes.
So this anticipation is building the whole time. Believe me, when you get it home, you don't put on the first track and pull the needle after 30 seconds. Oh, I don't like that. It's like, wait a minute, I'm way too invested not to sit here and listen to this 5 times to really make an opinion as compared to, nah, I don't like the way the drums sound next, because it doesn't cost you anything. But that whole experience is kind of gone. And
Yeah.
then, and I, like, again, we're talking a lot of years ago, and it's still really fresh on my brain of like that experience and how cool it was.
I still remember how we were memorizing all the lyrics before a show, listening to the records on
Oh yeah,
countless times, reading the lyrics. So when the band comes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, something happened around the early 2000s where no one. I mean, Alice Cooper would put out a record and sell 25,000 copies. No one was buying these records, and Sammy Hagar would put out a record and sell 35,000 or 25,000. No one was buying these records. So at least with Spotify now, like you say, you get that text message. Sammy Hagar has a new record out. Alice Cooper has a new record out. They're now getting listened to in the hundreds of thousands at least again now, because there was a time there where these new albums by these classic artists were struggling to even find their diehard fans.
yeah,
Because they were kind of a little bit, moved on in life. They weren't hanging around record stores anymore. So at least with the internet and everyone's face 24/7, if a classic artist has an album out, you can reach the fan base, at least, So there's good and bad to it all.
and I'm guessing that it's easier, quote unquote, for the band to form a set list. Now you can get feedback very easy from the fans. And speaking,
Spotify numbers, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. That's kind of a double-edged sword, especially now. Everybody has an opinion,
oh yes,
and 90% of the time, when I see a comment, good or bad, you have to go to that next phase of like, okay, what does this person have to gain or lose by saying this? Are they saying this just because they want to be, the fanboy and they think somebody's going to respond to them and it'll make their day? Or is this some kind of hate thing because they just don't like it and for whatever reason? I think those, we never had that when I was growing up. The politics of the band never came into play. Oh man, I love Richie Blackmore. I love David Coverdale. Well, I'm not a real big Joe Jackson fan, and some of the Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler is great, but it just doesn't work for me. It never got beyond that. It's just I like it or I don't like it.
right.
It resonates with me or not, and that's what music was. But now it's like a whole political campaign. It's like I don't know. It's definitely changed in that respect.
Yeah. So even though the paint on Free Spirit Soar is still wet, how do you guys understand this album? Will this be the only, I don't want to say the last, but I cannot find another word. Is this the last Warlord album?
Well, it kind of depends how well it's received. If it sells 6 copies, I guess we're kind of done. But the response has been amazing. Everyone who's heard it, I can't think of one person. There's been people that have been surprised. They're like, well, man, I listened to it the other day and I didn't know what to think, and I've got to write a review for whatever, and I can't believe how much this sounds like Warlord. And I keep going back to what Mark said earlier.
It is Warlord.
Well, it is Warlord, but it was Bill's music. I mean, you can't do better than that. And people, it's been nice to have that kind of element of surprise. Like, whoa, you guys actually did it. It sounds like Warlord. It sounds like Warlord. Well, it is, and it's been very nice to get those comments, and the pre-sales have been amazing. The response from the press, who are the only people that have heard it so far, aside from a few people in the band circle, has been very, very positive. So it's very gratifying, and I'm very grateful for those comments.
I think a lot really just has to do with how it's received. Again, is there an audience for another record? Do we sit down and make the decision of going, okay, how much are we going to really dredge up? Or are you talking to guys in the band that are so dialed into this that we can create new music that's in that vein that would appeal to that fan base? People just really have to sit down, look in the mirror and go, Bill passed away. Okay. He's gone. Okay. We didn't kick him out of the band, but do you want the Warlord legacy to continue? Which it can. It can. There's no question that it can. If you have the willing to participate and you have the guys in the band that are putting their Warlord hats on and going in that direction, why not? If the fans want it, if a label wants to back it, I mean, we're definitely hitting the live trail regardless of what happens with the record. There's no reason that the music of Warlord, like Bill said to me 20 times, there's no reason that music shouldn't be out there on a consistent basis playing in front of people. Let's face it. It's not like Warlord did 20 world tours, okay? It's not like we oversaturated anywhere.
Oh, no,
okay?
Not even close.
So we have plenty of live playing to do, which is great, which is very exciting. And I look forward to that. And I'm sure everybody else in the band does too. So there's the never say never. And it's out there, for the possibilities of us doing whatever we want. And it's kind of up to us and the fans. And, there's a business side of it too. There's no point in doing a record that you're going to put out yourself. I mean, it's like, so it's wide open.
Yeah, I'm great. And I'm sad to say that I have only seen Warlord once, and that was in Keep It True.
Okay.
Well, you didn't. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of places to play. There's so many. We've got so many festival offers that we're still sorting through and working out timeline wise how it's all going to fit together. Again, it all depends on the response. There's more Bill compositions that. And again, these aren't scraps by any means. They're just pieces that we didn't get to yet that could be there for a future record. There's the live thing, like Mark said, the live thing's there. That's different. Whether there's never another record at all after this, the live thing is still there. So it all depends really on, as long as people want it and as long as we're able to do it, absolutely.
So speaking of live, you have some shows in Europe.
Yes.
I think we have one in France where you will play the entire Deliver Us. What else do you have in your calendar, and is North US, specifically Chicago, in your plans?
Can't talk about it yet because we have contracts that say that the festival has to announce it before we do. So,
okay.
But there are plans. There are American plans. There are many more European plans than has been announced. I actually just sent an email today saying, when can we talk about this stuff? So yeah, that's something I'm sorry, but we'll just have to hold the phone on that one a little bit.
But it should be noted that we're totally into it. We're pushing as hard as we can. We're taking all the offers. We're not sitting up on the kingdom on the hill saying, well, let's not play that one and let's not play that one. This is all contractual stuff. We're ready to go. I've got the 17 songs down. Let's play tomorrow. That'd be great. So everybody's ready to go, and I think Giles made the point a long time ago when we first started talking about this, that he said, well, what's going to really happen is in the beginning, no one's going to know what to expect. And people are going to be hesitant to book the band. And so what'll happen is we're going to go out and we're going to tear it up and we're going to give the fans exactly what they want. And then hopefully what that does is create the buzz. And people are like, wow, they're really good. I close my eyes and this is Warlord, which is the only way they're going to get it these days. And it should be fine. It'll be great.
Do any of these 70s songs belong in the new record?
Not on this time out. I wanted to make sure that this time out, I mean, there's a couple sides to that fence. I want to give people exactly what they want and exactly what they're used to. And I know it's just, you don't have to open up that can of worms as far as playing the new songs per se.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and I know you've been to a million concerts. How many times have you seen a band that's like a legacy band? They're playing all their hits. The guy walks up to the microphone and says, hey, we got a new album out. Here's the song. And everybody walks out. Yeah. I mean, true.
we are laughing, but I hate when this happens.
Exactly. But I think it's very important this first time out. I don't want to have any controversy. I don't want to have any people. I don't want anybody to have a chance to say anything but, damn, that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear, well, why didn't they play Mrs. Victoria? And why didn't they play Aliens? Or why didn't they play that? We're going to play everything that we've played in the past. And you know, we always play the Deliver Us record. So it was funny when you said, "Oh, there's a gig where you're playing the Deliver Us record." I'm like, "Wait a minute, we always play those songs." I mean, like every show has that. So, but no, it'll be everything that we have.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
belong to the people who like the album, and I am also on board of keeping Bill's legacy alive and Warlord legacy alive. So keep that in mind.
Well, just to add to that, and again, this is also a response. A lot of the questions you've asked and a lot of the responses we've given have been, our responses have been colored in some way by some of what we've seen online. So sometimes if the reply to your question goes off on a bit of a tangent, it's due to that. But what's the alternative? To not play the songs? For the songs to never be played live again, for the name Warlord to never be seen on a festival poster, and for ultimately the legacy to fade away into obscurity. That's the alternative. That's the reality. Bill didn't want that. I don't want that. I know Mark doesn't want that. No. These songs are too good.
And also to go right along with what Giles just said is what, you know, okay, great. Let's call this Thunderchild's Warlord. Does it make a difference? Seriously, does it make a difference? You know, people don't kind of remember that I was there in the beginning. Okay. You know, it was Bill and I, and there's nothing to be, there's no, again, if you threw the guy out of the band, that's kind of a different story. And that's kind of like, oh, well, who has the name or whatever. But it's like, it's not that. You know, the guy passed away, unfortunately, and Warlord is Warlord, and the music, it is who it is, no matter who's playing it. You know, and as long as I'm here, it'll be Warlord.
And that is something else.
Funny because, well, I was about to add, sorry, Bill said to me, I made a joke to Bill. I said, well, maybe when we go, because again, Bill was kind of the one saying we should do this. There was a little bit of resistance at first from us. It was like, are you sure? You know, from what I said to him anyway. I said, why don't we just call it like Lucifer's Children of the Damned, a tribute to Warlord? And Bill was like, but that's not the band I formed. That's not the logo that I helped the artist create. That's not the iconic thing that I created. No, he goes, like classical music. And Bill wasn't comparing himself to these great composers, but he said Mozart is performed by orchestras all around the world and performed well, and the composer isn't showing up. He's been dead for like centuries. So it's not, Bill saw it as the same thing. He said, if the songs show up every night and they're played well, that is Warlord. A band is a concept, a band is an idea, and a band is a body of work and a collection of songs. That is the identity, ultimately, of a band. When we're all long gone, what is Journey? Journey is that catalog of songs.
And let's not forget,
that's how Bill felt.
How many generations are from the point when the Warlord make a debut to this day? 3 generations? There are people that have never seen Warlord live, have never heard of Warlord. So what you guys are doing is helping the younger generations to learn some part of metal history.
Absolutely.
Well, I learned that from my dear friends in Riot. I mean, I was there when they were putting it together after Mark Reale passed away, and there was a lot of objection to that.
Oh yeah.
Now there's guys that are like in their mid-20s that have spent the last 10 years growing up with the Riot 5 version of the band. To them, that's their Riot, and that's how those songs have looked. Can you imagine if Riot had stopped the day Mark Reale died? Wow. Because Riot 5 have had an amazing career this last 10 years. Yes. They're bigger than they've ever been. So there's an example of a band that has taken it where the creator died and what they've done and built it into what it is now, as opposed to imagine if they'd just stopped in 2011, you know?
Again,
and on that note.
On that note, yeah.
I would like to thank you again. I mean, it has been such a pleasure talking to you guys. And as I said, Chicago, hope to see Warlord live here.
Absolutely. You live in Chicago?
Correct.
Oh, okay. I have relatives in Chicago, so no, absolutely. But can we play someplace besides Reggie's, please? Can we play, please? Just please.
There are venues.
House of Blues.
That would be.
That was a great place. But no, we're absolutely. We would play tomorrow. It's not, people have to realize it's not the band. It's the business of getting the band booked, getting the shows. The band is 100% ready to go. There's no problem with the band. It's
I'm
the
sure
business.
everybody knows, especially after the 2 years that we had, everything has going up. Everything is so expensive right now, let alone band touring.
Yep. And we do have, unfortunately, the half European, half American thing. So it's not like we all live next door and can just get in the van and drive over.
Yeah,
So
we have the
but
Atlantic in
we're
between.
on it. Giles is taking care of it. He's doing a great job.
Thank you very much again. Have a great rest
Thank
of your
you.
day.
We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All
Take
right.
care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.